Yeah, so we are starting, we just started off 2026. And as we were talking about the other day, we're going
Mm-hmm.
into the year of the fire horse come in February 17th. So,
Yeah.
what has been coming up for you as we're in this sort of transitional period?
Yeah. I mean, I love that question, and I also feel like the reason why you and I are doing this live today is because we had a conversation and we felt how important it is right at this very moment to kind of, both speak between us, but also let other people know what's kind of going on, and maybe there's like a mirroring effect or a reflection in other people when you start to hear, experiences from a conversation between you and I. So thank you for like bringing this up, bringing this to the forefront for both of us. I appreciate that. And
You
yeah,
as
I
well.
think what's yeah. Go ahead.
I'm so sorry. Are you getting like an echo or like another voice?
No,
Okay,
are you?
I am.
Sometimes is I've experienced this before. Oh, okay.
Because I couldn't really hear everything you were saying.
Oh,
It's stopped now.
yeah.
Yeah. It was like what I was saying at the start of the live was playing at the same time while you were talking. So,
Oh,
oh,
yes. There's a glitch on YouTube where this can sometimes happen. I've experienced that before. Is it still that way?
no, we're good now. So, yeah, if you
Okay.
want to carry on with what you were talking about. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah, no problem. No, I was just saying I fully appreciate you bringing this to the forefront for the both of us and also for other people that are listening as well, because I think they're like I certainly heard beforehand, that we're going to go into a certain state at the end of the year, and move into this kind of cocoon mush state in preparation for this kind of new cyclical event of the fire wars.
Hmm.
And it's sort of one thing to hear it, and then there's a completely different way of like actually experiencing it. And I think this time it went very deep, and it was very kind of bringing up a lot of mind trauma, and I felt like I really needed a lot of time in, I don't want to say isolation, but like at home, and really paying attention to who I am, and kind of going inwards. So I that was a deeply my experience. What was yours?
Yeah, I've had a similar experience. I would say right now and like the past few months of just kind of like going within and also I started to research about the year of the snake and how
Mm.
the snake, represents regeneration, renewal, and also looking into like how a snake actually sheds its skin. And
Oh
that
yeah.
I found really interesting because as humans, we constantly are replacing our old or damaged cells, but a snake will actually do it all at once.
Mm-hmm.
And like when it sheds its skin. So it
Mm.
has to molt in order to, otherwise, it will be damaged by the old cells or the damaged cells.
Mm.
And it actually starts with its eyes. So its eyes will turn like blue and kind of
Mm.
the eye caps will come off or loosen, I should say. So
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was very interesting symbolism because it shows how, like, in with the transformation process, it really starts with having a clear vision. And I think that that's something that I've been kind of working through because I've had a sort of a lack of clarity happening in my life. But I'm starting to gain more and more clarity. And I think we're having this talk right at the perfect time before we move into the fire horse year, which starts on February 17th, because it's a
Mm.
kind of a pivotal moment to like really let go of what is no longer serving us and move forward with a clear vision.
Mm. Oh, thank you so much for bringing that up, and how beautifully you described that with the snake. And it's also like the vision that I'm getting is that we're moving from a snake that's moving around on the ground, and sometimes is has to sun itself in order to digest, so it has to stay still, and it has a beautiful movement to it, but it's very much stuck to the ground. And then we're moving into this fire horse, which has four extremely powerful long legs. it kind of
Mhm.
has the ability to run far and wide and be really free and have this like kind of exhilarating power about it. So
Mhm.
letting go of that old in order for that fire horse to really take off, I think the symbolism is just
Mhm.
absolutely gorgeous, to be honest.
Yeah, I think so. And also, we were this was actually the year of the wood snake. And then
Hmm.
with the year of the fire horse, and there you have that kind of connection between wood feeding fire.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
and I think that's another really interesting synchronicity is that 2025 is also in numerology a 9 year. So
Hmm.
if we add up, 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 5, we get 9. And
Hmm.
2026 is a 1 year.
Hmm.
So we're basically ending this like 9 year karmic cycle and starting a new chapter in 2026 in the Gregorian calendar.
Hmm.
And I believe that the last time we had a fire horse on the same year as a 1 year was back in the 1800s. And I
Yeah.
can't remember when that was. I think I wrote it somewhere down, but I don't know.
Hmm.
So it's been quite
Yeah.
a long time. And so I think that
Right.
that is a really powerful um, synchronicity, like I said, like a new beginning for a lot of people. And it does seem like a lot of people are going through this sort of like transitional state. It seems like that's what has been going on in your life as well.
For sure. But I
Mhm.
just want to comment on the fact that you're sort of tying this back to the cyclical nature of things because I think it's super beautiful and it's something that has come through for me a lot. So as you mentioned, the fire wars, it happened. I think it's 1966. It happened last time, but the last time
Mhm.
it was, as you said, 1800s. So it's kind of all these beautiful cycles that are building upon each other. But for sure, in our lifetime, this is the first time we're experiencing something because it's not just this that's happening. We also have other astrology, the Western astrology, that's
Mhm.
supporting this. And, on this very same day that Chinese astrology moves from the wood snake into the fire horse, we also have a beautiful astrological event in the, Western astrology, which is the new moon.
Mhm.
And so it's beautiful how those two things come together, and so it adds to the symbolism, and it becomes even more strong. So I love how there's always the and. It's not like the or, but it's like the and. It's cyclical, and it's a very specific evolutionary point in our lifetime that we can't ignore. Like this is
Mhm.
just there's just so much power behind everything that's going on right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I feel like a lot of people have a really negative viewpoint of the snake, well, in our
Mm,
culture,
yes.
which is understandable because, snakes have some of them have very poisonous venom, but
Hmm.
actually, some of them, their venom is actually are used for healing modalities as well.
Yeah.
So the snake can be venomous, but most are
Yeah.
actually harmless.
Right.
And then some of them are actually used for medicinal, um, you know, reasons. So I think
Mhm.
that that's interesting because I think the snake is, with the symbolism of the year of the snake, is that this is a very important part of the process, though it might be very uncomfortable, like shedding the skin, letting go of the beliefs or the patterns that no longer serve you. I mean, I can
Mhm.
speak for myself that I do believe I started a chapter of my life in 2017, which was like I was talking about with the 9 year karmic cycle ending in
Yeah.
2025. And that chapter, has been very difficult to move on from in a lot of ways.
Mm.
But I think what's really helped for me personally, because I know other people who I've spoken to who are kind of in this place of like transition where maybe they've left behind the old life and they're no longer really resonating with like what I'd call the old self, but they're not
Mm.
really fully stepped into the new identity.
Yeah.
And the old self will kind of try to like pull you back or maybe get you to go back into certain patterns of behavior, for example. And I was finding myself getting like with a lot of resistance with this personally, where it was like I wanted to resist my old self. I wanted to like, but what I found was when I kind of shifted my energy to not like resisting or shaming my old self for maybe if I was going kind of backwards in some way, maybe going back into old coping mechanisms or something.
Mm.
Kind of just having understanding of the old self and
Mm.
like honoring the old self for helping you to survive, because the old self that you might have, you know, was most likely based on survival patterns and was just literally trying to help you survive. But now it's like, at least me personally, I'm moving into a new sort of mindset. So I guess just kind of almost treating that part of yourself as like an entity within your being, and working with it so that it can integrate and kind of come with you into the new life rather than like
Mm.
resisting it or shaming it or that type of thing. That's been kind of
Yeah.
like what's been helpful for me personally lately.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the fact that, old patterns show up again, it's not necessarily a bad thing, like you said. When you look at it
Mhm.
from, if we go back to your previous analogy of like it starts to happen, the clarity starts to happen at the eye level for the snake. It's now you're in a different awareness. Now you can see things differently. So you can actually see your old patterns from a whole new perspective, and you can see them as being survival mechanisms, and you can see how beautiful they are, how much of a gift they were to you and are still for you, because they're helping you to do all these beautiful things, like move forward in your life, even though things might be really hard. Like there's a reason why we create those coping mechanisms, because somehow we realize we need to survive and we need to kind of move forward, even though we feel traumatized by whatever situation happened to us. But maybe now there's this beautiful moment to be able to release those things, run free like the horse, and move into something new. But I think there's also, and I think you mentioned that as well, there is this level of confusion, of
Mhm.
not exactly knowing how to be in this new world, like
Mhm.
shedding so much that your new layer of skin is like, how do I move, how do I interface with the world? And there's also might be so many levels of sensitivity in that new skin,
Mhm.
where what I mean is like you have a new sense of the world, like you're sensing the world differently. And so for me personally, and I know other people that I've talked to, it's almost as if you're stepping into this whole new chapter where you're
Mhm.
looking at things differently, and you're also sensing things differently, and you're not sure which direction to go, or
Mhm.
what to do with like your old patterns, or what to do with your old job or work, or what living situations. It's like, okay, now what? So as we're waiting for this new energy to kind of fill into our lives, it's almost like we're
Mhm.
in this in between state where we shedded, or we are shedding, but we also, we're sort of being called to look beyond and say, hey, I'm here now, but I haven't quite felt the new energy. So I'm
Mhm.
in between. It's almost like we're behind the curtain. We're waiting for the theater to kind of open up and for us to play this new show, and we're ready, and we're also not quite ready. Does that
Mhm.
make sense? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it makes total sense. I feel like a lot of people, when you're in this kind of, I call it like a void state,
Mm-hmm.
where you're kind of, like I said, you're not resonating with the old self, you're not resonating with who you once were, but you're not
Mm.
fully stepped into your new identity. And it can
Mm.
be very confusing and uncomfortable to be in that place. I mean, you can even think of,
Yeah.
since we're talking about the snake and the horse, I mean, when the snake sheds its new skin is going to be kind of, I would say, delicate, right? Most likely. I mean, I'm
Mm.
not exactly
Mm-hmm.
sure. I did used to actually raise butterflies. And so I would see the
Okay.
process that they would go through of like going into the chrysalis and then
Mm.
emerging. And when they first emerged, they would kind of like, some of them were more confident and they would take off, but some of them were like very kind of like hesitant and would like kind of just
Mm.
sit there for a while and not really know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I feel like what's important to remember is that you can't force a snake. to molt, and you can't force a butterfly or caterpillar to go into a chrysalis or to emerge from the chrysalis. It just happens naturally.
Yeah.
So I think that, like, when it comes to that whole kind of state of confusion, or like people who maybe like, I just want to be in my new chapter already, I want to be like my new self already, it's important to like not use these kind of like quick fix sort of things. Like, a lot of people just like, oh, just be your new person, be your new self. And I understand the value in that, maybe like visualizing or just embodying your new self, but also recognize that that process doesn't happen overnight. You can't necessarily just like wake up and be your whole new person. Just like a caterpillar, you can't force it to go into a chrysalis, or a snake, you can't force it to shed its skin. It happens when the time is right. And I think when it comes to the confusion that you're talking about, I think me personally, I've been kind of just trying to be more comfortable with not knowing. And I think that's part of the healing process.
Yeah. 100%. And I think that's possibly the hardest thing to do as a human being, is to be comfortable with the unknown, to be comfortable with not fully knowing how to take the next step, or even knowing what's gonna come when you take the next step. We like to control things, and we like to plan things. We like to almost be like project managers on a day-to-day basis, where we say, okay, I'm booking this call, I'm booking this appointment, and when things go wrong, we kind of get upset, and this is not how things are supposed to be. That's usually our normal reaction. And for us to be fully open to receiving every single thing that comes along, and adjusting to that, it's a tricky thing. And I think what we're gonna need to do as we're moving forward in these, we touched upon it a little bit, but by April, all of the outer planets are going to have moved into air and fire signs in astrology, which means that things are going to be moving very, very quickly, and things are going to change so quickly that it's going to be hard for us to kind of stay in that project management control type situation. And the more we do, the harder it's going to be for us. So fully being open to receiving life at all time, it's something that's, and I'm just talking about me as well. It's something that's so easy to say, but actually to do that on a moment by moment basis, it's not an easy thing. But nature does it automatically. As you said, you can't force a butterfly to do whatever it needs to do. You can't force a tree to go in a certain direction. It kind of does its thing, right? And it just, if it's very windy, you see what trees look like when it's very windy. It starts to like bend, and it follow the motion of the wind, and it just adjusts. But as human beings, we'd be like, no, I'm going to stand here in the wind. Like we're sorry, we have a harder time adjusting to exterior factors. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting ride to see how we can do that.
Yeah. And what's been helpful for me as well with that is, and I'd like you to speak more about the astrology that you were mentioning, because I'm just curious about that. But working to be really, I don't want to say working to be, but like striving to be present. So striving to be in the present moment as much as possible, not constantly, because like you said, as humans, we do tend to kind of be in our mind a lot and like worry about what is going to happen, or ruminate about the past a lot of times. And, I think that's kind of just part of being human. But I think in this present time, in this period that we're in right now, what's been helpful for me is to really just strive to be in the present moment as much as possible. And, kind of just recognize the blessings that I do have. And, because part of me is like already wants to be somewhere else and wants to be like in a different place. But just recognizing, enjoying this present moment, because really that's all that we have at the end of the day. Tomorrow is not promised. So,
yeah.
But sure. You had talked about the new moon. I wasn't sure if you were talking about that being coinciding with the Chinese New Year, or
Yes,
okay,
it
yeah,
is. So those two things are happening at the same time on the very same day. So
yeah,
it's quite beautiful, and that's when the Western astrology is sort of taking off as well, energetically speaking, if that makes any
interesting.
sense. There's just there's so many things that are happening this year.
Mhm.
But so if we talk about the outer planets, as I mentioned, so it's all of the planets that are outside of Earth in relationship to the sun, and all of those have long cycles, very long cycles. So the fact that all of them are changing signs, it's a crazy thing, and also that all of them are changing signs into fire and air, as I mentioned. So it's almost like by the time we get to April, there's this huge lineup of planets that are moving into Aries, the beginning. So it's like a reset. And it's almost like it couldn't be clearer, it's very
Mhm.
clear that, okay, this is a new beginning. And
Yeah.
it's obviously it's cyclical, but the last time this happened is so long ago that we don't really absolutely know when it happens. It's very difficult to find out because you have to do all these calculations for all these different planets, right?
Oh
And I
wow.
believe somebody did, and it's been thousands of years, but I can't specifically say that right now from the top of my head. But it's
Yeah.
a very clear sign that we're very much in the beginning of a completely new stage for humanity. Does that make
Mhm.
sense? And the beauty of that is, as we move through a bunch of kind of really dense years,
Mhm.
now we're moving into a completely new beginning, and Aries being the first sign of the zodiac, bringing about lots of power and new beginnings, new starts, new energy from its planet Mars, who's like the ruler of the war god, but also the ruler of like a lot of fresh power and moving forward. So I
Mhm.
find it very, very exciting for us to
Mhm.
see what we can do with that energy.
Yeah, I mean, do you have any recommendations for anyone who might be listening? And I did want to mention for anyone who might just have joined just in the past few minutes, we're discussing the transition from not only 2025 to 2026 in the Gregorian calendar, but
Mm,
also the transition from the year of the wood snake to the year of the fire horse in the Chinese zodiac calendar.
mm.
Um, and just kind of this like liminal space that a lot of people are finding themselves in. And you also talked a little bit about the world as a collective,
Mm.
transitioning into like a new era. Could you speak a little bit more about that?
Well, okay, so first, I think first you asked me about suggestions for this moment in
Yeah.
time, because that's
Sorry, two
fine.
part question.
I think it's I think I actually really like that, and then I'll try to kind of move into,
Mhm.
because what I would suggest right now, I believe that things are going to move really quickly now. Like, we think that we're over a month away from the kind of event that we're speaking of, but I think time is going to start to pick up a lot. So what is really good to do right now, and actually particularly like next weekend, because I've been looking into the moon astrology about it too. So next weekend, it's really good to sit down and think about what it is that you actually want to achieve in your life. What are your
Mhm.
dreams? What are your intentions? What are your and I think, like, think big. What is it that you want to do in this life, and how can you do it? Like, write down action steps. But it's actually not the time to start doing them yet. And
Mhm.
for many different reasons, we're right in the smack in the middle of the winter in the northern hemisphere now, which is not a
Mhm.
natural time to start new projects, even though it's like the new year.
Yeah.
But when we come into February and then March, the energy is going to be moving so quickly. So if you have your
Mhm.
notepad of those things that you want to achieve, then you can start to do them.
Yeah.
So that's what I would like deeply suggest for people to really kind of, and not, you can think about it, but very much feel into it. Let's
Yeah.
say you feel like, or you think that, oh, I want to write a book, but
Mhm.
like feel into the reason of why you want to write it.
Mm-hmm.
What is it that you want? Do you want to share something with the world? Do you want to explore some topics? Do you want to become a better writer? Like, feel into what it is that you actually want to achieve, and you can write that down as well, because maybe that means writing a book, but maybe it means other things too. Maybe you just want to write and see what actually happens from that. Maybe it turns into something else than a book. And I'm just trying to use, like, kind of an idea, because it's easier with, if you use a context of something. So that's what I would deeply recommend over the next week, to sit down and journal about what it is that you want to dream into being in this time, and then put off the actual action steps perhaps into middle of February, towards end of February, March, so to speak.
Yeah.
And let's see, what was your next question?
I'm actually trying to remember. Yeah, so I think I was talking about this sort of, I was talking about sort of this collective shift that we're going through. And there's one thing I kind of wanted to add to your last point, which was, talking about, and I think you're talking about doing that on the new moon, doing the journaling.
Yes, exactly. Next weekend, new moon on the 18th, I believe.
Okay. Yeah. And I think that's really important, for anyone who might be watching who's not as familiar with the moon cycles, but like the new moon is an excellent time to kind of sow the seeds, right? Like, what intentions do you want to set? And then the full moon is a great time to sort of release release what is not, sprouting, so to speak. Yeah. And what I was going to mention with what you had said was, with the year of the snake, as you're setting those intentions. So let's say, like you said, I want to write a book, or I want to do whatever it might be that your intention is, or your desire, and looking at what is it that you need to let go of in order to achieve that goal. Like, it could be some sort of block, subconscious block that you have. Maybe you're not even fully aware of it. But that's why, meditation can be so helpful, because it can help us to kind of access those sort of blocks. Like, what is it that might be getting in the way of me doing whatever it is that I want to do? And I think that's important here in this last month or so of the snake year, of shedding those things that are no longer serving, so that we can kind of go forward. Once the year of the fire horse starts, we can go forward with those goals with more clarity and not being held down by this baggage. For example, if you really want to attract a soulmate into your life, the creator is not going to, like, whatever is destined for you is yours. But if it hasn't come into your life yet, it's because there's no room for it to come into your life. So maybe you still have some sort of like attachment to a previous partner, or you have some sort of worthiness block that, like, I don't deserve that, or whatever it might be. Those are the things you have to let go, so you can make space for example, I'm using the example of a soulmate, or whatever it might be. So
yeah,
just some things that came to my mind. But yeah, if you'd like to speak about, the sort of collective shift that we might be going through, would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think for me, there's some level of clarity, and then there's also some not fully through the veil yet. But what I do send this into is the fact that, okay, so the Capricorn solstice that we had on, before, like in December 2021 or so, that was kind of a tipping point for a wave of humanity going through this shift, going through a more of an awareness, or being open to receiving that awareness. But I believe that in 2026, we're going to see much more waves of people going through something very similar. So what we've been talking about today, that kind of caterpillar going through the chrysalis, moving into the butterfly, that experience that you and I've had, and many, many, many people around the world alongside with us, so many groups of people are going to go through in the next year. And we're going to see these waves become bigger and bigger and bigger, I believe. And there are certain points in the year, let's say April, and also in the middle of July, where at least, if you look at the stars, there's a potential for a lot of humanity to move through the same cycles as we've been through.
Mm.
So I think by the end of 2026, a huge collective are going to be in a very different space than where we are right now, in a much more open space, a much more heartfelt space, where we relate to each other through. I heard somebody saying the other day, the power of the heart. How when you have a conversation with someone from the heart, you can actually connect in a completely different way than if you're only talking from your mind. And you can actually feel the other person, and you can have a beautiful interaction that way. I think we're definitely moving into the heart. That's my big prediction for the year. Much, much more time is going to be spent in here. And if you listen to Joe Dispenza or Greg Braden, they will talk about the scientific fact of the heart having a much, much bigger magnetic and frequency field than the mind. And it actually has been measured. So I believe it's like 6 or 7 times bigger. And that's what you feel when you meet another person. You actually feel their heart frequency. And that's how you feel when you're aligned with someone. So for example, when I'm talking to you now, like I can feel that we're aligned in frequency and our conversations that we've had before, right? So it's kind of like a knowing without an understanding.
Yeah, I resonate a lot with that because I feel like me myself, and I've also known I'm thinking of another person specifically, who over this past year has gone through a heart opening, and I think that as a collective, I mean, I don't know, this is just what I'm sensing is that we are moving into a more heart-centered space. Now, it's not going to happen overnight. I think we're an extremely mentally driven society in a lot of respects, still. But I do think that we are kind of going into more of a heart-centered space. And why do you think, I mean, you've already kind of spoken a little bit about that, but why do you think that that is an important thing to kind of live more from your heart rather than your mind?
Yeah.
Or why is it like a positive thing?
Yeah. In order to, well, okay, so if we start from one end, the first time I heard somebody talking about moving into your heart, I was kind of like, what do you mean? What are you talking about? Like, how do I move into my heart? So that's a very big thing. And that's when you start to move into your body and into your heart, that's when you start to tune into your intuition. And I believe anybody's listening and they're wondering the same thing, like, how do I do this? There's beautiful meditations where you can do that. And there's the Hearth Math Institute has a really beautiful website you can go to, and they have the heart mind coherence meditation, which is very short. And it allows you to pull your energy down into your heart, and then you can kind of stay there. You can focus on what it is that you want. Again, Greg Braden does a beautiful job of talking about this. So you can just go on YouTube and like look at the heart mind coherence. And that allows you to come into your heart if you're kind of wondering how to do that. But the reason why I believe this is because in our society, we have, so the mind is a beautiful instrument, and I'm thankful each and every day for my mind. What I've realized is that the mind has been given a job that it wasn't designed for. So the mind has been given the job of taking care of us, of being the instrument that ensures our survival. So we basically told our mind, hey, you got to make sure I'm safe. You have to make sure that I'm surviving. You have to make sure that everything is safe around me. And so the mind, if you pay attention to your mind, if you're like the observer of your mind, you'll see that it's constantly trying to keep you safe. And it does that by constantly scanning the environment and saying, hey, you should maybe focus on this. Hey, you should focus on this. Oh, this can go really wrong. Oh, this is not going to work out well. And so it plays all these scenarios for you because you gave it the job of keeping you safe. Now, I believe it wasn't designed to do that. The mind is designed to calculate things, organize things, figure things out, perhaps keep a memory bank. But the instrument that's designed to keep you safe is your heart. So when we decided to kind of, move our power up here, we forgot that down here, there's this instrument that's constantly connected to the source that's always keeping us safe. And when we move into our heart, we feel safe, we feel connected, we feel like we're taken care of, which means that the mind can start to release and be more of an instrument of, okay, how can I figure this problem out at this very moment? Let's say you give it a job, you say, oh, I need to figure out how to create this Excel spreadsheet. And the mind is like, oh, great, I can do that.
Yeah.
But so the mind is overactive because we've moved so much away from our heart. And I believe that what I see around me is more and more people are moving back into their heart. And that's how we start to feel safe in a whole new way. And I believe the awakening process that's happening is even awakening is a wrong word because it's remembering. It's remembering our tuning instrument of the heart, that's where we need to be.
Yeah.
That's what I feel when I sense into it.
Yeah. And, something that I've recently been working, you mentioned Dr. Joe Dispenza, and, something that I really resonate with him is this concept of like creating mind-heart coherence.
Yeah.
So how can you kind of get the mind and the heart in sync? And I think that, more recently in my life, whenever I do meditate, I really do try to, or what I do first is I drop down into my heart space. Because, when you're meditating, your mind wants to kind of go around and bring up what happened 2 hours ago or what's going to happen tomorrow or whatever. But if you can kind of just calm the mind and drop into your heart space, and, there's different methods you can use to do that. But that is where I believe the heart is the connection to the divine.
Yes,
And
100%.
that is, I believe that's where you can get these, sort of downloads come through. And like you said, the mind is a very sacred aspect of us as well. I don't want to like make it seem like the mind is a bad thing or anything like that. But the problem is that I think a lot of people are very much led by their mind when really we should be like led by the heart, and the mind can, figure things out as we go along, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense for me. And it is, as you said, there's nothing wrong with the mind. The mind is beautiful, and I think the ego has gotten a bad rep, right? It's like, oh, overcome your ego, but the ego is there for a reason. We're meant to we're meant to strive. We're meant to kind of create an individuality for ourselves. We're meant to ensure our survival and all these beautiful things. But what we've forgotten is that kind of heart-led openness, and always fully feeling as if we're being held. And I don't know, I'm being guided to speak about the Bible now, and I'm not a religious person in any way, but what it actually even says in the Bible, that humans should feel just as safe as the flowers that are on the field, because we're constantly being taken care of, we're constantly being protected by the source and by the universe. And I think that the more that we come up here, the less we feel like that. And so when we start to come back into our bodies and start to feel safe again, start to feel like we're always abundant within us, then there's a sense of relaxation, more openness, and then the right balance can be held between the mind and the heart, because there needs to be a balance. And right now I feel like we're out of balance, and that's why we're talking about this. It's not that one thing is bad and one thing is good.
Yeah, no, I think it's just about the imbalance, like you said. I think that we do have an imbalance in the world. And but yeah, I think that's very interesting that the heart came up, because I feel like that's part of the shift that I'm going through on a personal level, as well as a lot of people collectively are kind of opening their hearts more. And yeah, I'm the same way. I'm not someone who kind of like goes into like religious stuff, but it kind of made me think of the line in the Bible from Jesus where he said not to like worry about, or like the birds don't worry about how they're going to get their clothes and all this stuff. And so that's kind of related, I feel like, to what you're talking about as well, as like not worrying so much about, survival. I think we're moving out of the time of survival, and it's understandable that a lot of us are still in that, because for many, many generations, we've had to kind of fight for survival in a way. But I think that we're kind of moving out of that phase, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. And on a personal level, that's like, well, how's that going to work?
Right.
But at the same time, I feel that kind of flow behind that energy as well. And I don't know what it's going to look like, but I do know that I'm sensing into that energy that it is going to change on many different levels. And we haven't even talked about what's happening on the collective level in terms of what things are disappearing, things that are crumbling on the outside. I think also in 2026, we're going to see a lot of systems dismantling and crumbling, and we're already seeing the craziness on the outside. So and all of that stuff is happening because there's no longer an energy to keep that alive anymore. And the energy is moving in another direction, which means that those things don't have the energetic, kind of support to survive. And so if you start to look on the outside, you're going to see a very, very crazy world right now as things are starting to, remove themselves from our realities, so to speak. Yeah. So what I would say is the hard conversation that we've been having, it's very important to kind of create a spiritual practice this year, or continue with one and deepen it if you already have it, and really focus on the inside world. Really focus on what's the beauty and the light that are coming from the inside when you're connecting to your heart, and watching the exterior from that perspective, from kind of like the observation, or looking at it and saying, oh, okay, this is right on time, this is supposed to happen now. And fully understanding all the atrocities that are happening and how awful they are, but also understanding that it has to happen in order for us to move into a different space.
Yeah. I mean, I was just reflecting on that the other day, is that like, some of the chaos that you see in the world. I think we were even talking about even like the president of the United States, and whether you love him or hate him, I do believe he's like maybe an agent of chaos, but that might be necessary in order to bring some of these systems down. I'm not sure, what systems were you specifically thinking of when you were talking about systems? And I need to plug my phone in, so give me just a moment.
No worries. No, I believe it's every single system that is built upon a hierarchy of a top down controlling type of energy.
Yeah.
And so I believe we're pretty much talking about all the societal systems that we have, and we're already seeing it happen. We're already seeing how a lot of truths are coming out. There's a lot of disclosure about all these different systems and how there's perhaps better ways of doing it. And it's not, I don't want to talk about it from like this is bad and now we're going to make something better. We had to go through this. We had to shed that skin. We had to experience these things, because otherwise there's no evolution if things are easy. We're kind of being forged into diamonds from like the pressure of the outside world and the pressure of what took us here. So I think there's this intricate system of everything being supporting of each other. It's kind of like, okay, so let's use the example of trauma, right? We have trauma in our childhood, let's say, and we feel like it's all bad to begin with, and it is. And then we start to heal it, and we start to move through it, and eventually we come to a space of where, like, oh wow, there's a beautiful gift under this trauma. There's a beautiful something that is there for me to discover underneath it. So underneath the darkness, there's always light. And so right now, we have all of this darkness, all these things happening in our world that we are starting to see through. And there's a reason for that too. We have to see through this disillusionment in order to create something different. And so the darkness and the light is supporting each other, just like the yin and yang symbol. There's not one without the other. Like, we wouldn't be able to live in this 3D reality if it wasn't both. If there's not up, there's no down, and there's white, black. So I actually don't look at it as something bad. Like, everything is carried by the light.
Yeah, that kind of brings to mind for me the concept of good and evil, which I think that a lot of us are very, programmed to believe in, like, good and evil. If you look at, like, we even talked about the Bible, or any of, like, a lot of the media, right? Movies and things like that. But when you think about it, I don't want to say that I would ever condone someone's behavior that's what you would call evil, which to me just means not moral, right? Or separated from source. That might be a better way to say it. But in some ways, I don't even really believe in good and evil in the way that we kind of believe as humans. I think that everything kind of has a purpose. So when we think about, like, the positive and negative polarities, the negative polarity has a purpose. We're talking about chaos or these other things, or destruction is necessary, or death is necessary for life. We talk about, like, we're kind of talking about, like, the rebirth happening with the year of the fire horse. So yeah, it all is in balance with each other in a way. And again, that's not to condone certain behaviors or actions that people might have, but I also kind of see, and also, like, even the people that you might think of as being, like, the most evil, quote unquote, people are usually very wounded people, very, very, underneath it, there's, like, a very wounded inner child, usually. And they have these, like, strong protective mechanisms in place that make them basically do the things that they're doing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you can go into this very deeply, and I'm sure we're triggering some people by this conversation as well. But I think, understanding that it's kind of like we live in this matrix reality, and there is all of these aspects too, and there are all these roles to be played, and everybody's kind of playing their role, and it looks awful on the outside, and to, like, the human heart, it's like, oh my god, how can this happen? And it's really crazy. And at the same time, viewing it from, like, that ego's perspective and saying, okay, these things are happening, what can we make out of this? I love the fact that you use the word chaos, because if we look at physics, when something is chaotic, when something is released, so let's say you boil water, you get all this, moving water in the air, and it's like this foggy thing, right? Out of that chaos, there's the possibility to create more than when it was, let's say, frozen solid, or when it was in its water form. So when there's chaos in physics, there's the potential to create so much. And so what we're seeing right now is chaos. We're seeing chaos on the outside, which means that energy can, through our intention and awareness and higher levels of consciousness connecting to our heart, be created into something completely new.
Yeah.
And I think that's the beauty of where we are right now. It may look chaotic on the outside. It may feel chaotic on the inside, and it certainly does on many, many, many days. It's very kind of, staticky on the inside, because there's just so much information coming in. But that's like the creator state. That's when you can start to mold all of that chaos into something absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, definitely. And this might be kind of unrelated, but something you had said kind of made me think about emotions and, when it comes to trauma and these type of
Mm,
things. Because we were talking about earlier, the shift from maybe like your old identity into your new identity. And
mm,
at least me personally, as I've done that in my own life, I've had a lot of emotions come up. And I would say that for many, many years, I grew up in a household that was like very emotionally repressive. So we weren't
mm,
able to maybe express emotions that were negative emotions. And what this caused me to do later in life was basically have like a constant, like very emotionally dysregulated because I didn't know how to process emotions. And I think that what's really been effective for me in my life, and I think I'm just speaking about this because I feel like it's something that's going to be very important in the coming years. I feel like right now there's more and more people becoming aware of it, but it's going to become more and more like mainstream is the concept of feeling your emotions
mhm,
and not repressing them, because
mhm,
I think that that is, at least me personally, has been like the key to healing from trauma personally, um, and becoming more emotionally regulated rather than having like all this resistance, like I can't feel this emotion.
mhm.
Allow yourself to just allow the emotion to be there, and it will kind of just naturally pass through. That was kind of
Yeah.
a little bit maybe off topic, but for some reason I thought of that when you were
Yeah.
talking.
No, I don't think it's off topic at all because I believe that emotions are actually our superpower. The
Hmm.
fact that we can feel into things, the fact that we can kind of transmute emotions, as you were talking about, is something that we were made to do. That's kind of how we experience our reality is through our emotions. And
Hmm.
when we can see our emotions and express them fully and cry when we need to, be angry when we need to, have all of these kind of ugly emotions, that we're told that we shouldn't have, and then also have all the beautiful emotions, our experience of life becomes so full. And I think that's part of the previous discussion we had of living through your heart. And
Hmm.
I also want to thank you for sharing, deeply of your own experience, because it's very helpful when we speak about it from our own experience, and
Hmm.
everyone can relate to that. I think I don't know that many people who like grew up emotionally, stable and able to regulate them and themselves and so on. Why? Because we simply weren't taught how. Like,
Yeah.
we weren't taught in school or by our parents, like, oh, if you're feeling this emotion, perhaps you should do these things, or maybe you should express it, or you should write about it, or you should meditate, or maybe you just want to go out and hug a tree, or do boxing, or something. Um, and and so now, as adults, when we're sort of taking care of the chaos inside, that's also the chaos outside, as we were talking about just 10 minutes ago, because what we're seeing on the outside is just an expression of what we are on the inside. So when
Hmm.
you're deciding to regulate yourself and say, hey, I want to heal this, I want to feel things, I don't want to be numb anymore, I want to actually feel, then you're healing the world in your small part, in your corner of the universe. So
Hmm.
I think it's very, very important to speak about, and I appreciate that you brought it up.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I do think this is going to be very important in this kind of new era that we're moving into that I can't really
Mm.
put words to exactly, but I
Yeah.
do think that, having emotional regulation is becoming much more
Mm-hmm.
mainstream. But
Mm-hmm.
emotional regulation isn't about being calm all the time. It's about being able to bounce back when you are triggered, or, get yourself how fast, not how fast, but like how are you able to regulate yourself. And I believe
Mm-hmm.
that emotional regulation is honestly the foundation to a successful life. A lot of people try to force things to happen, especially in kind of like the mainstream manifestation communities. It's like, I'm just
Yeah.
going to envision that I'm going to have $1 million and that's just going to happen, or, like
Mm-hmm.
forcing things to happen, like the hustle
Mm-hmm.
culture. But really,
Yeah.
when you can start with a foundation of emotional regulation, that just naturally allows you to align with the life that you prefer rather than having to force things to happen. And because when you force things to happen and you don't have a solid foundation, eventually it's going to come crashing down. There's a lot of people that build like entire empires off of basically like unworthiness wounds and other things. But in the end, like they might not really be fulfilled there. And eventually they're probably not going to, it's not going to be long lasting. So a lot of people want these like quick fixes. Like I want to manifest a soulmate tomorrow. Like I've gone through the YouTube content on manifestation. It's like, manifest your soulmate within 24 hours, manifest anything within 24 hours. And it's like, I think that actually puts a lot of pressure on people and causes more resistance. And then, like I said, some people are able to manifest in that way, in that kind of like artificial way, but it's not long lasting. I think it starts with like emotional regulation, trauma healing, these type of things. And, to be honest with you, I worked with many different professionals from the time I was a teenager when I was having like crisis and all this type of stuff. I never really like made the progress that I made until I started working with like a spiritual mentor who told me about somatic experiencing and processing your emotions. And when I started to do that, that is when the major shifts happen. It wasn't working with psychiatrists, to be honest with you. It wasn't taking medications. I think those things can be helpful, maybe like for short term, and they can be helpful for people who are in crisis or who have really deep-seated trauma. And it's absolutely necessary in some cases. But I think for like longer lasting results, process, like those medications, for example, actually prevent you from feeling your emotions, which is what's necessary to release the emotions, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm with you for sure. And I think you're speaking a lot of beautiful truths. And also, if it, as you said, if your nervous system or your emotional system is not ready to receive all that abundance or relationship that you want to manifest, it's not going to happen no matter how much you put into it, because it's almost like your gates are not open. Your heart is still closed because you have experience that have hurt you, and so you're not able to open that door to a new relationship. You're not able to open the door to money or abundance or however you want to receive it. So you're trying to manifest on the outside, but you're not like allowing it in. So being open to receive is a most important thing. And there might be layers and layers of emotional things that you have there. I mean, I used to jokingly talk about the fact that I like put Kevlar around my heart, because then I would at least be protected. Things wouldn't come in, but things didn't go out either, right? So there's a certain level of numbness about that, but that was a survival mechanism that I needed at the time. And I think we all have gone through thick times like that where we really needed to kind of numb ourselves in some way, shape, or form. And then we start to move through and heal whatever it is inside of us. The most beautiful thing, though, is that, and this is going to sound like ridiculously simple, but it actually works like this. The only thing your body is requiring of you is your attention. It only wants your focus. So if you have something that's deeply hurtful for you, the only thing your body wants is for you to sit there with that emotion, for you to just experience the emotion, for you to feel the pain that you have in your heart or whatever the pain is located in your body, because a lot of times it also attaches itself to some organ in your body. And for you to just sit there and be with it, which is kind of what meditation is, allowing those emotions to come forth and for you to just observe it, that's the only thing you need to do in order to heal. So your body's constantly seeking your attention, saying, hey, I have a problem over here. Can you please pay attention? Can you please look over here? And when you do, when you sit down, either with yourself or with a spiritual coach or a professional, because sometimes you need help also, to be in that space in your body is the only thing your body requires in order for you to heal wounds, in order for you to heal heartache, in order for you to heal. It's incredible how much your body wants to heal. It's just requiring you to be there.
Yeah, and I think that, like, I had talked about somatic experiencing. I think that,
Yeah.
my life definitely changed when I started to connect with my body because I didn't realize
Mm-hmm.
that for many, many years, I was completely disconnected from my body, and I think a lot of people are, especially people who
Yes.
have gone through trauma, because trauma does disconnect you from your body.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you think about it, when you go through a traumatic experience, your body is not a safe place to be.
Right.
So,
You want to
um,
run away from it, right?
right. So a lot of people go through trauma, and I would say
Mm-hmm.
I would argue that every human being has been through some form of trauma, but
For
especially people
sure.
who've been through more severe forms
Yes.
of trauma, you know, reconnecting with the body is very, very important. And that could
Mm-hmm.
be as simple as recognizing when you need recognizing signals that your body is giving you. So,
Yeah.
for example, if you need to go to go to the restroom, like to
Mm-hmm.
excuse yourself. And if you're not able to go to the restroom, to be like, okay, I'm going to go as soon as I can. Or if you're hungry or whatever it could be, like just respecting what your body needs. And
Yeah.
yeah, I think like getting back in touch with your body is very important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I do think a lot of people are very disconnected from their bodies. At least I know I was for
Me too. Mm-hmm.
very the majority of my life
Yeah.
until fairly recently.
Yeah. For sure, me too. And I wasn't listening to signals the body was sending me. It had to send very,
Mhm.
very severe signals. Like it would start with like
Yeah.
headaches, then it would turn into severe
Mhm.
migraines, then it would turn, and then I'm like, oh, now I'm paying attention, now this is
Yeah.
debilitating for me. But it's almost as if the universe is bringing out like a bigger and bigger, instrument. Eventually, it's like knocking you in the head with a 2x4 and being like, "Hey, I want your attention," and
Yeah.
and it's but and I think the reason I was just sort of feeling into why we're speaking about this now, and the reason we're speaking
Mhm.
about it is because it is that shedding, that shedding of
Yeah.
the wood snake that's still happening. And
Yeah.
so feeling into our body, feeling into our emotions is like super important at this point in time in order for us to
Mhm.
move forward into the next phase.
Yeah, actually, I realized that too when we were talking about this. I was like, "Oh, this is actually why are we talking about this?" But because
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of it seems like it's off topic, but
Yeah,
I
but it's not.
yeah, when it comes to shedding the things that don't really serve you anymore, a lot of it is related to trauma, is related
Mm-hmm.
to, you know, beliefs that were formed, let's say in childhood, that are no longer serving you. And
Mm.
yeah, the universe or your body will definitely send you more and more severe signals. I was thinking back to the last time we had a 1 year, which is
Mm.
2017. Wait, I believe. Yes.
Yeah.
Interestingly, I had a very bad car accident that year where my car was totally destroyed, like totaled. And it was like that was me moving into a new chapter. I
Mm.
feel like I don't know, I'm saying that I guess maybe that was like I feel like that was the universe or my higher self or something forcing me to get rid of that old car
Mm.
that I had that had was
Mm.
associated with the previous chapter. So it was like yeah, the last time we had a 1 year was very transformative for me because I believe
Mm.
that, like I was talking about before, 2017 was the start of the 9 year cycle that we just ended in 2025, for me at
Mm.
least. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
about
Mm-hmm.
if you kind of sense that with your own experience, if you can think back
Yeah.
to 2017.
As you were speaking, I was like, oh, wait a minute. I think we moved. We moved in that year. We bought a house and we moved our whole family. So yes, it was a big new beginning for us as well in 2017. So I
Yeah.
hadn't put those two and two together when you and I were talking the other day, but you're absolutely right. It was a big year of change, for sure, in that 1 year. So
Yeah.
that's exciting to think about what's going to happen this year, right? It's a whole new kind of chapter for us to look into, and it's really exciting. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I was having some
Mm.
like
Stability situations.
yeah, because
Yeah.
this charger, anyways, okay, I think I got
Yeah.
sorted out, but it was kind
No
of difficult.
problem.
But
No problem.
yeah, I mean, I think that this is such an like I don't know. I feel like this is the perfect time for us to talk about this because
Mm.
I really think that this last month and a half before February 17th, when the year of the horse begins, is going to be, it's just this pivotal time when you really should, we're still in that kind of reflection, the year of the snake, reflection, regeneration. So, what is it that you need to shed that's no longer serving you? Because that's just going to be like baggage weighing you down once we move into the year of the horse. So, for anyone listening to this, I really feel like right now is the time to really reflect on that. Like, what is it that you want to let go of? What is it that's no longer serving you? And you can, when it comes to like your old self, who you once were, I was talking about that because that's kind of how I see it. I see like an old self and kind of my new self. What is it? Maybe like seeing that part of yourself, that version of yourself, and thanking that part of yourself or that version of yourself for all that he or she carried you through, because most likely it was a lot. I myself, I was like connecting with the old version of myself yesterday, when I was kind of doing some reflection before on the year of the snake, the year of the horse, and kind of like communicating with her as a part of myself. And I know this sounds a little crazy, but this is just kind of, I do a lot of what's called parts work or IFS therapy. And so it kind of relates to that to me. But yeah, connecting with her and like thanking her for all the lessons that she taught me, and also forgiving her for maybe things that I have regrets over, and I was kind of like, I was about to say mistakes. I don't think we necessarily have mistakes per se, but I feel like they're more like lessons. There are no mistakes, there are lessons, right? But kind of having this sense of forgiveness, and then also at the same time asking her to integrate into the new identity and kind of setting some boundaries in a way, if that makes sense. Like, we're not going to do certain things anymore because, they're no longer aligned with who we're becoming. So if that makes sense, kind of setting boundaries with the old version of yourself. And also just like seeing and honoring that part of yourself.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's really amazing. Yeah. I think that's a really good note to end on, actually. That's a beautiful practice to do right now. As we're moving out of this phase, I think that's a beautiful practice to do, to really pay attention to those parts of yourself and letting them, releasing them gently.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you want to say like releasing or like integrating, allow them
integrating is a better word.
Yeah. Right. Because like, maybe you're still carrying some aspects, but not the parts that no longer like serve you,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you for that, it came so beautifully out of you. And I think it's very deeply important at this moment in time to do something like that for yourself. So thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to say thank you, Marie, for coming on today and having this discussion. It's been an amazing opportunity to talk about this with you. And for anyone who's listening, please check Marie out. It's Marie_drop in the sea, correct? On YouTube?
Yes.
Yeah. So check her out, and maybe I think that we're going to be doing another live again on Marie's channel in maybe like a month or so, once we start the year of the horse. Yeah. Or maybe just before, we'll see. Yeah.
And see where we are energetically then. So it's always really exciting to see what comes up in that short amount of time, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you so much for inviting me here, and I fully appreciate you so deeply as a friend. And I think you have so much wisdom. You carry so much, kind of healed and integrated parts for you that you share your light with the world. So I really, really want to thank you for that.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you, Marie. And you as well. So I really appreciate you as well as a friend and all of the wisdom that you bring. And thank you again for coming on for this discussion today.
Yes, anytime. Take care.
All right. Ciao.
Namaste.
Namaste. Bye. Bye.
Madam.